Hello, everyone. We will begin in a few moments, so as people are trickling in. Okay, Larry,
I
whenever you
think,
want to start.
yeah, I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larry Marighi. I'm an architect in Violin, New Jersey, and a member of AIA South Jersey. And it's my pleasure to moderate this program today and to introduce Joyce Gattuccio, AIA South Jersey's president. Joyce holds a Bachelor of Architecture degree from NJIT. Shortly after joining AIA New Jersey in 2003 as an associate member, Joyce was appointed the Regional Associate Director and in 2007 became the Intern Development Coordinator for 3 years from 2007 to 2010. During her tenure in this position, she coordinated the largest to date IDP informative seminar attended by 150 students, associates, and ARE candidates. Quite an accomplishment. Joyce was also a founding member of the Women in Architecture New Jersey in 2014 and continues to support this committee. As for her AIA South Jersey connection, in 2011, Joyce joined AIA South Jersey to help Bruce Turner, her mentor, bring the section back from its hiatus. She was the Associate at Large Trustee and Events Coordinator for many years as the section grew and began to thrive. In 2016, she became the AIA South Jersey Secretary, but she held that position for about 9 years. And
Wait,
this
almost
year was
15.
elected president of AIA South Jersey. For the past 15 years, Joyce has and continues to wear many hats for AIA South Jersey. The section has become a vibrant community under her watch. In 2020, Joyce, an avid hit lover of history, inquired if there was an AIA New Jersey historic archive. Upon finding none existed, then current President Steve Lazarus asked Joyce if she would charter an archive committee. Under her leadership, AIA New Jersey's Historical Archives Committee was formed and has cataloged thousands of pieces of information, interviewed influential architects, and continues to inform the organization of its history through webinars and events like this. Outside of her AIA involvement, Joyce has also volunteered in religious education programs, Lyme Aid for Kids, and the former Lyme Disease Association. Joyce lives in Ocean City County with her husband Keith, her son, and her two dogs. Joyce, welcome. I'm excited. I've been a member of AIA South Jersey for quite a while. They really don't know a lot about the history, so it's going to be very exciting to hear what you've found, what you've dug up in the archives. So, without further ado, Joyce, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Larry. Guys, I'm really excited about today's presentation because our Historical Archives Committee, which has been going on for about almost 4 years now, we have done every section. This is our last section to do, and also up to three for the AI New Jersey. And the AI New Jersey last webinar, which will be 1990s to present, will be in September. But I'm really excited because this is my section, close to heart. And so anything that I, learned over the time of researching, made me proud to be a South Jersey member. And we are the smallest of all the sections in AIA New Jersey. However, I always say we are the smallest but the mightiest. And I'm very proud to say that. Let's begin. Our history of AIA South Jersey, and it is currently serving Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland counties, and it's from 1919 to present. So our first slide here shows that this was the original organization was started, at least from this article, we say about February 14th, 1919. They were discussing the organization of this a new society called the Society of Registered Architects of Atlantic City. This is the first time we ever saw anything organized in our region, and the president of the society was called William B. Rybenak. And he eventually became, and I want you guys to understand the differences, is that there was AIA New Jersey was in two parts at one time. So at first there was New Jersey Society of Architects, which was not an AIA organization that started in 1895. And then AIA New Jersey came along in 1900. But these two organizations ran simultaneously for many years till 1965, and then they merged. All of the local sections that exist within AIA New Jersey originated from the NJSA, not from AIA New Jersey. So AIA New Jersey kind of inherited them when they became local. So that's why when we say that they were part of the NJSA, the first, couple of decades really had to do with the NJSA and not necessarily AIA. But you'll find a lot of the members over time became members of, they were members of the NJSA and members of AIA and vice, depending on, some of them weren't, some of them were. So we'll look at it as we go through the presentation here. But William B. Rybenak he became an AIA New Jersey member in 1923, even though he started this NJSA organization in 1919. One of the interesting things I came across was in AIA New Jersey, in South Jersey, since we're so small, you tend to know the names over and over again. You recognize the names because we're like family. You know everyone. So one of the names that I saw continuously was Vivian B. Smith, and he was never president of AIA South Jersey. However, he, according to this book, the South Jersey History from 1664 to 1924, it stated that he was the first AIA New Jersey architect from the region in 1915. What I found just recently, learning from the Institute, because the Institute has a database that you can look up of any member prior, I think, 1970s or so. It didn't say that he was a member of AIA New Jersey. It said he wasn't a member till 1921, which also include two of our other more important members, Howard A. Stout Sr. and S. Hudson Vaughn. They were also from 1921. But what I eventually learned from our national historian, Nancy Hadley, was that back in that time, you could be a member of the Institute, which is national, and member of AIA New Jersey, and not be both. You could be both, but you could not be both. So nowadays we think of it as such an odd thing because we join a national and then we join our state and our local sections, but that's not how it was. And the Institute did not have the recordings. They had the recordings of the 13 members within AIA with ANA from the Institute. But there were 45 other members at this time that were just of AIA New Jersey, and they didn't record them. So I suspect that the book is correct in saying that Vivian B. Smith was the first from our region to join AIA New Jersey, but he was not the first to join the Institute, which was considered the national organization. Our next slide shows here that one of the things you'll learn through the course of this and all the sections is that the names have changed a lot throughout time. And it gets a little confusing, and AIA South Jersey tends to have more than most. But in 1923, they started becoming, we saw it now no longer being called the the Society of Registered Architects of Atlantic County. We called it now, they started calling it the Atlantic Division of the New Jersey Society of Architects. Now, is it possible that the previous group was not part of the NJSA at that time? Yes, but we're going to just assume it was because William Rhinebeck was now the president of this division. So since if he was the president of the last division in 1919 and now it's 1923, we kind of have to take liberties when we can't find any information to assume that it was just probably just a new form of the organization. What was great was their first meeting was at the Knife and Fork. And if you're, from our area, the Knife and Fork is a famous restaurant. And I hope that one day our section can get back there to have a dinner. Um, then I just wanted to show not my, but some of the architecture in this period. I found quite a few beautiful drawings and photos from the 1900s to the 1930s that I just wanted to give an idea of this is what this architecture in our region looked like at the time. A lot of Howard A. Stout, some Charles H. Adams, and R. Bain Williams Sr. These were their drawings. So they were the formative architects of our area and what created the origins of our area to look like. Okay, so in 1932, we came across the organization now changes the name again to the Society of Architects of Atlantic County. And Howard A. Stout Sr. was elected president of this new version. And they really wanted to hone in on stimulating interest in architecture, which kind of goes along the same lines of what the NJSA wanted and what AIA was doing um, on a state level. And the other big thing is that they wanted to discourage stock plans and buildings because this was a big problem down in this area. They wanted things to be more customized and specific to the client. And as you could read, some of the first members were Charles Lott, David W.B. Haining, Robert Bain Williams, J. Vaughn Mathis, S. Hudson Vaughn, Donald A. Rosenstein, Herman Turon, Vivian B. Smith, Charles H. Adams, William S. Hewitt, Bertram Ireland, Benjamin Brown, A. L. Brooks, Oscar Schmidt, Howard A. Stout Sr., and Victor Gondas Jr. And my gosh, they loved their middle initials. I can tell you that. Everything's always a middle initial. The next slide here, we start to see more where they get more into advocacy. And from here on out, and for those who knew more about Atlantic history, Atlantic City history, could you perhaps help me to understand the history more of Atlantic City? But it seems like even from the 30s all the way up to today, they were constantly looking for renovation and revitalization of Atlantic City. So the mayor invited local and community architects to work out a beautification scheme for the boardwalk. And what was really interesting about this article was at the time the president, Donald A. Rosenstein, appointed and again that Vivian B. Smith, the committee head. And what they did was they kind of carved out each block or a section of the boardwalk that the societies each architect would get, and then they would do a design, and they were not compensated for any of this. So they did this out of their goodness of the heart and their goal to make things more beautiful and to increase the improvements of Atlantic City. Um, we continue through now the Depression. Now this is past the Depression. So the previous slide was right before, right in the beginning. Now we're past the Depression. And the author in this article gives credit to the architecture community to continuing to working through the Depression, and that the fact that we see new homes and renovations happening in Margate was a major success because obviously everything was in its bad stages for a decade. And the Atlantic County Society of Architects speak of new materials and construction practices, and they want to continue the organization to encourage them to beautify Atlantic City as well. And again, another name change from 1935 to 1949. We keep seeing the newspaper articles, which we know always aren't always correct, changing the names from the group, either Atlantic County Society of Architects or the Society of Architects of Atlantic City, but we mostly see it as the Society of Architects of Atlantic City. Um, at this point, we're still towards the end of the Depression and going into the 1940s, and they're encouraged by a lot of programs that are coming out, governmental programs, and they are especially encouraged by the Federal Housing Act through new small loans net, which now allowed for small businesses and small home ownership. They were looking to hope that a building boom would be created. It also suggested that Atlantic City renovates its properties that it's acquired through the city and use WPA funds for labor. On the right-hand side article shows that the local building trade unions supported the society in the architecture work for the housing projects. And this was very common in this time for AIA New Jersey and the different local sections to request that government works and things like this be looked at to look at architects within the society first before going outward, which makes sense. You want the homegrown architects to be the ones who are working on those projects. And this was a constant fight throughout all the sections. Now that we've done all the sections to see their history, that they were constantly arguing with officials about this. So the fact that the trade unions were also supporting the architects, saying that these housing projects should be awarded to the society as a group, was very beneficial. So now we're heading into the 1940s and early stages of World War II. And again, we're seeing another advocate for resort improvement. And in this time, they're now focusing the side streets of Atlantic City, saying a lot of the hotels are obsolete and that they want to have more strict regulations, should be giving across all resorts. So the way I kind of gathered from this article was that it kind of sounded like these side hotels were a little slummy-ish and that they really weren't helpful or beneficial to the visitor. And by forcing the city to have these strict regulations across the board, then not just the big hotels, but these smaller hotels, side street hotels, would also be have a good quality of architecture as well as interior design and other such. On the right hand side, we have, remember I talked, some of these names repeat themselves. David W.B. Haining. He was appointed as the director of the WPA administrator for our area, which was great. He was now in charge of all the projects in Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, Salem, and Gloucester and Camden counties. So he kind of covered a lot of West Jersey's areas too, which was really great. And now he was able to, he'd be in charge of all the projects for the national defense in those counties. He became president in 1955, just as a little clip. So here he was doing the WPA director, 1941, and 15 years later, he's president. This article is the meeting of what they called what did they call it? I'm sorry. They called it the ACSA, the Atlantic County Society of Architects. See the names, they flip back and forth a lot. The Building Trades Employers Association and the Building Trades Council of Atlantic County. In this particular, which was different, they took a flip on Atlantic City. Instead of talking about the resort areas, now they're talking about proposing a model national light manufacturing community on Albany Boulevard and kind of creating this, what they stated as a World's Fair of Manufacturing. The organizations also favored city licensing laws for contractors, and new building codes were also for the first time addressed, because the last set of building codes were created in 1924, so they really needed something new. In this article, Lauren Poem, who eventually becomes, I think, the first AIA member to be head of the New Jersey State Board of Architects. He's the president of the NJSA, the New Jersey Society of Architects. So we're still talking about the NJSA at this point. And he spoke to South, and he went on to talk about how, because now we're in the 1950s, we're having the problem where inflation is really high due to the war, but there's also there is a construction boom coming because of all the GIs are back, right? So he's talking about that the government needs to curtail the building material costs, and also the limiting of building alterations to only 15% of the value, because they kept on reducing the cost of what architects could be paid at this time, and all the different services, which was problematic for the people who are actually creating these structures. He also talked about the need for experienced architects when the defense program gets underway. And J. Britton Young, who's the president at the time, advocates to officials to make sure local architects get priority to defense contracts in the area. Again, another thing that, pushing, we have to advocate for ourselves, that we need to make sure that, New Jersey's first, basically, or in this case, South Jersey's first. And the lower right-hand article kind of shows that this is now the first time that now the name is now changed to the South Jersey Society of Architects. At this time, there were 9 sections within the NJSA. So there were a lot, and some were merging together. So it was a little crazy. But South Jersey always remained primarily Atlantic and Cape May County, and then eventually went on to have Cumberland County as well, which was part of West at one time. But now we're officially calling just South Jersey Society of Architects of the NJSA. So we're starting to roll into the name that we currently have today. I liked showing this picture because this was the first time that I saw an article about like a tour that we did. And this was at the Vineland plant at Edward Campbell Company, which was a concrete company. They had an architect's field day, which I love the term. They saw samples of pre-stressed concrete structural units, and the strengthening of concrete slabs. J. Britton Young was there, and Joseph Snyder, who was what they at that time used to call a junior member. So, they had obviously different names for different things over the course of time. In 1960, we've broken the next the next decade here. Um, this is when we finally see Boca come in. Now, different. This was specifically for Atlantic City. And the South Jersey really wanted to push for this to happen. They felt it was absolutely necessary. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Am I reading the wrong? I'm reading the wrong one. I apologize. Okay. Um, Sorry. This particular one is about the SJSA creating a I just need to move something here. Building clinic. And what I found really interesting about South Jersey's history was that they were very much into going out and speaking to the public. They were constantly having programs about that integrating with the public. And just like we do today, that was like their main goal. And in this particular article, they created a building clinic, which was a free weekly forum for the public to dispense for the organization to dispense help to the public and advice for building their home. So anyone could come off the street and get some advice about what they needed for their houses, and they would provide that. They also discussed getting municipalities and areas to improve building codes. See, again, I was getting to the Boca Code slide. And the society makes plans to seek legal counsel against work done by unlicensed persons, which we know has always been a problem even to this day. I loved this particular slide because it marked, and this was 1960. So we've gone from 1919 to 1960, primarily around Atlantic City area. And yes, we know that most of our members are from the what I call the greater Atlantic City area, but we have members across all three counties. And this was the first time they held a meeting in Cape May County at Zabaria's Angel Sea Inn. In fact, I was kind of surprised to find out that all former meetings were obviously held in Atlantic, but they were also held in Camden and Cumberland counties. So they might have, I know they had a joint meetings just like we do now with West. So that might have been also the reason why they held them there. Um, and then I know in our bylaws, it states that there is supposed to be a meeting at least one meeting every year in each county, which at least in the law, since I've joined AI South Jersey, I've purposely set the meetings to have at least in one in each county every year so that it helps the people who live in each county not to feel left out, as well as that it's easier for them to drive and so on and so forth. Here's the Boca slide. So city officials, so this is 1961, city officials wanted to update building code from the 1924 to the current Boca as it was. And the SJSA was in support of this, but they felt they needed to have some specific changes to the Boca that specific to our area, especially the Jersey Shore, which of course makes sense. They even addressed, of course, like buildings on pylons that were not normally in the Boca. However, city building and engineers kind of felt like it wasn't necessarily for us to create our own. They just wanted to use it as a reference instead of rewriting their own version. So there's a little discrepancy there. But ultimately, they did agree that the new code was desperately needed. So now 1965 is a big change for AIA New Jersey and JSA, and they merge, which was great because it no longer caused confusion for anybody researching for that. And what happened was all the sections now became part of AIA New Jersey. And we finally move on with this as our state society. So there's no more multiple organizations running around the state. And this is sadly one of the few things we have from the state that was in our original state archives, if you could even call that. There was only like 4 images of these framed pictures that showed the citations of when the organization merged. All right. So the left article, this is when the talk about a school for New Jersey had been going on since the 40s, even slightly earlier than that. But it was interesting to see within South Jersey that the talk even came down to here. So in 1966, the left article talks about how South Jersey wanted to encourage the support of Mrs. John M. Alton to induce the State Board of Architects to establish a 4-year liberal arts college in Atlantic City. It doesn't specifically say architecture, but it kind of, I felt, kind of gave, like, why would they not support that if it did not eventually have an architecture school in it? And then the Wright article from 1969 addresses that South is also pushing for the New Jersey State School of Architecture, like the rest of the state is. However, the president, Robert Bowie, felt that the amount of students that would want to go to school would probably need 2 colleges, so 2 separate universities to have School of Architecture. Now, obviously now, but this was obviously besides Princeton, because Princeton was always there. They were referring to state schools. So now we have obviously Kane and we have NJIT. However, there was kind of an indication that there should be something in South Jersey. And I know that that's always been an issue, at least for us, that not having a school here has always been a bit of a problem. All right. So I was excited to finally see some articles about people who have actually met. So this article, Martin Bloomberg was president in 1966. He last year celebrated his 90th birthday and his retrospective, which was fantastic. And here was an article where South Jersey puts a war on Blythe. This was a big push, and this went on for about 15 years. This was a big thing within South Jersey, and it was a Blythe on the ugliness of what Atlantic City had become. And they wanted to put various different legislation in, including the lower right-hand article, which shows Marty talking about how even signage had become out of control for businesses and that there needed to be more of a local ordinance on what signage looked like, and that that was a very chaotic jumble of our store signs is a major source of urban ugliness, as he states. And there's a picture of Marty standing up in the white in the white outfit there with the black tie. That's him. So that was fun to see. So, including with the fact that they were on the war on Blythe, the other thing that they wanted to do was they pushed for a large publishing of consulting your architect, he's your best investment. And these advertisements were all over the newspaper for the next 15 years. And I think that's great. I think unfortunately, in some ways with social media, we've lost this beauty to old advertising, and it's harder for us to kind of find it for things like that, especially on a historical archiving standpoint. So to see this with the old logo, I mean, it's beautiful. And to see something like that quick is sometimes sticks in your head better than people are so used to the internet, you don't pay attention to those things as much as you used to. So then now we're in the 70s, 1976. We still are on kind of fighting the war on Blythe. And the one thing that they want, the South Jersey pushes that the rest of the state to vote for yes, which was the referendum on allow gambling in Atlantic City. What I want you to understand is what it talks about RUDAT. And RUDAT was the program called Regional Urban Design Assistance Team that was created by National. And National would go in and they would do these comprehensive studies on urban planning and architecture and see what they could do to towns and cities that were in bad shape. Long Branch was one of them. Atlantic City was another. They had done this across the state as well as all over the country. And Atlantic City had one done, and the review of Atlantic City recommended that the city would not be able to come back without the need for for gambling. So that was the catalyst for this. So they sent out over 800 cards to the membership, which was about the amount of membership of AIA New Jersey at that time. This comes from Joseph Sorrentino's archives. So if he's on there, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it because he gave us some really beautiful images of flyers that I had never seen before, hand done. This was from 1980, and this was a meeting with the presenter was Gary Pedersen, Commissioner of the Pinelands Commission. And I wanted to just show you guys two things about this flyer. One, it showed that we had a continuous relationship, that Pinelands wasn't just always about Atlantic City, that Pinelands was so crucial for us within our organization, as we still today. We just had a presentations with the Pinelands Alliance. You know, a couple of years ago, we had another presentation with the Pinelands Alliance, and now this was with the Pinelands Commission. So I really think that that continued relationship about the Pinelands is so crucial within our region. And it also shows that here is finally, we're starting to be called the South Jersey chapter. Now the sections, what we call sections today, were called chapters back then. Which was obviously very confusing because AIA New Jersey was the chapter and then the locals were chapters, but that's what it was at that time. And they didn't switch the term to sections until the 1990s. This also was a 1986 map of the territories. Now you're down to 6 sections, which like I said, they were called chapters. Architects League, Newark Suburban, Central Chapter, Shore Chapter, West Jersey Society of Architects, and South Jersey Chapter. So the names were slightly different. And the territories were not along the county lines like they are today. They were a little bit all over the place. They didn't always make sense. And at that time, South Jersey only included Atlantic and Cape May. We didn't have Cumberland. It didn't change until the 1990s when they finally moved the territories along the county lines. And then we were finally officially called AIA South Jersey instead of South Jersey chapter of AIA New Jersey. Like I said, we gained Cumberland. West lost Cumberland, but West then gained Burlington. All right, we're back into the 80s, into the 90s. One of the biggest thing in the stories that I've heard, oral history from you guys, was the fact that the high school competition was so near and dear to most of your hearts. From what I gathered, I know it started in 1983, and I think it ended in 1995. I cannot find any information beyond 1995, so if you guys know, please, and it goes beyond 1995, please let me know because I'd like to know that information. Our own Dan Massione, who's right in the middle there, and William McLeese were winners of this program. The students received usually a banquet in their honor, awards, and scholarships. And it started off the program in 1983 with 2 high schools, Atlantic City High School and Mainland Regional. And then it grew up towards the end upwards to 5 to 7 schools. So it really grew in the course of over 10 years. I just wanted to show this was in the 90s, we had a lovely newsletter. I don't have a lot. I only had like 2 I think, or three images of this newsletter, but we did have one, which I always think is really nice. Sometimes getting something physical in the mail tends to give you a little bit more value to it than something fleeting like the internet. So I think that's lovely. Also, the kind of flyers we've seen over the years, top three, some of them were done by Joseph Sorrentino, others were done by Stan Wurtzer, and then the colorful three were done by me over the years in the 15 years I've been approximately with AIA South Jersey. So we've kind of changed our look and our design over the years. So now I want to talk about three really influential members of our organization. Not that everyone is important. We all are. We've all helped in different ways, but these three people stuck out in my mind. So the first was Howard A. Stout Sr. Not only was he president of the Society of Architects of Atlantic City, which was, like the start with the NJSA and he was the president in 1932. But he was our first and only fellow, as of that I can find. If there are someone else that knows that there's another fellow out there from our South region, please let me know. But we definitely need you guys to consider working on this. And some of our more senior architects, that you guys have a beautiful career and you should consider it. And we want to represent our section. Then that moves on to Charles Wheeler. Now, this is the story that I was told. This is the oral history. I don't have anything tangible to say, but the story that I was told was that Charles started out in West Jersey, and he was the president in 1988, 1989. And in the early 90s, our section was struggling. And we were possibly going to close, and he had heard this story, and he became so upset that this was going to happen that he changed sections and became president in 1993 and also in 1997, and rejuvenated the section and brought it back to life. And then he was also president in 1995. And that led to Bruce, because from what I understand, that Bruce was kind of came on board through Charles, and Bruce was president in 1995, obviously when Charles was president of AIA New Jersey, and then from 2000 to 2016. And during that 2000, and I would say 2011 period, Bruce did a lot to keep us alive. And we were kind of on a hiatus because there wasn't a lot going on, and it was hard for him to do it alone. So a lot of things kind of remained dormant, but he still kept our chapter alive, which was really good because we would not be here today. And then he became AIA New Jersey president in 2005. And I can only find that Charles and Bruce were our only South Jersey representatives that became AIA New Jersey presidents. What I think my story then obviously links into Bruce is that he was my mentor, and that when I finished my AXP, or what they called IDP position back then, he said, "Why don't you come and help me out with South Jersey and revitalize it?" And I said, okay. And I came in around 2010, 2011, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say about 2012, 2013 was the first time we had our first meeting in like 10 years. And from then it grew, and we became more, and we did bigger and more things. So in 2015, we had our first West Jersey AIA South Jersey joint meeting at Anata Wine Bar. Larry, you can see yourself right there in those pictures. The first recorded that we could find joint meeting between the two sections was in 1950 in the Seaside Hotel in Atlantic City, but we think it goes further back than this. Then this was another joint event where we had what we called the Night of Art, Architecture, and History at the Tomasello Winery in Hamilton, New Jersey. And what was really great about this is we had never done anything like this before, but kind of looped back into the connection with the arts within AIA New Jersey, is that we had all our members bring, because most of us are artistic in other ways besides architecture. And we had everyone bring a piece or something that they did. And it could have been a collection. I believe the right hand thing of the buildings was a collection, I want to say, of Dave Manders. Um, I think the stained glass was Christina Amy's. The jewelry was mine, and I don't remember who did the paintings on the left, but it was a mix of all different things. We had some people had brought in historical books they owned. Some people had, drawings they had done or watercoloring, and it was really beautiful to see this because it was kind of showed that we aren't just about architecture, but about all things art and beauty. And we had a very successful meeting. That was over 50 people at that meeting for both sections. And then this was what we called our one and only modern tri-section meeting. There have been tri-section meetings in the past, in the 50s and earlier. But this was a tri-section of South Shore and West. It was at the Seaview Hotel in Galloway. We also called it what we called it an extended meeting, which where we didn't just have our regular meeting, but we had 2 hours before of talks where you could get extra CEUs. And what was really great about this time was, as you can see in the right hand corner of all the women, all three sections were led by females at the time and had significantly amount of females on their executive committees. This was just another, I wanted to show this about our tours over the years. We had the Pinelands Alliance Barn, the Edelman Fossil Park and Museum, Lucy the Elephant, the Intex Manufacturing Plant, the Wetlands Institute, the Franklin Street School renovation in Cape May, and the Barn Studio of Art. So we've done more than this, but I just wanted to share some of our modern tours that, we don't do a tour every year, but when we do have a pretty good turnout, and I'm pretty happy for those. So if you have any place that you would like to suggest that was a tour that's in our region or close to, please let us know. I wanted to give a little shout out to the women in architecture. Even though our section is strong and mighty, we don't have a lot of women. We have a lot of younger women coming up. But these are some of the specific women who have helped us along the way. And Terry Cummings was our first female president in 1994. Christina Amy was our president in 2017, 2019. I'm the current president, which I'm very proud of that. And I wanted to also, even though she's no longer a member, Caitlin Cifalagio, she was our treasurer from about 2016 to 2019, and she was a very significant part of us growing our section. So I ask for any women who are on the call to please reach out, even if you want to do a small thing or help out with a meeting, one meeting. Start out small and we can grow, but we need more women into our executive committee. I always like to say this, like father, like son. We had 3 pairs of father and son teams who were either presidents or part of the executive committee. The first was Howard A. Stout Sr. and Howard A. Stout Jr. Sr. was president in 1931 and Jr. was secretary in 1950. We have R. Bain Williams, president in 1936, and Rodney C. Williams, and president in 1957. Our most modern father-son team, which was William Salerno, president in 1985 and 1986, and Michael Salerno, and president in 2022. And I love to see that because we've seen that across all sections. Just quickly wanted to show you, I'm not going to name everyone, but I have all the slides of as many presidents that I could find. I surprised. Now, what I want you to understand about our presidents is most presidents within our section were president more than once. Just because our section was so small, and a lot of times they either had to come back or they were president for multiple years. So we have less names than most sections, but that doesn't mean that they didn't do more work. And also in the fact that we are actually the oldest section in AIA New Jersey within the sections, starting in 1919. And I just wanted to show you. So you kind of see this is in chronological order, so you can kind of get a feel of the different pictures over time. And as we move into the 50s, 60s, and 70s, or early 80s, and then with our more modern presidents. We had a lovely event, which was called the Past President Celebration last year, that celebrated our 125th anniversary, and these were the past presidents who attended. And just quickly, some of our current things. As you know, we do the challenge with the Boys and Girls Club of America. We've done the Spaghetti Marshmallow Challenge, and this year with the Building Bridge Challenge. Our beach sweeps that we're very proud of. All our allied members, wanting to give a shout out to them because they have been very supportive of all over the years. We love giving out our prizes. We certainly do. That's a little quirk thing that we like doing here in South Jersey, and a lot of people enjoy it. And then just this shows kind of some more modern pictures of our membership. And we're just really happy that, we've continued, and we keep coming back. When we're knocked down, we keep coming back, and, we're the little engine that could. So I want to say thank you very much for everyone. I hopefully have a few extra minutes for questions. And if anybody has any questions or concerns, they can email me personally, or comments or anything, or they'd like to email the AIA New Jersey Historical Archives at gmail.com. And any literature about AIA South Jersey, flyers, anything you have in your own repertoire is so welcome. So thank you.
Joyce, thank you so much. This is very informative. I learned a lot today. I'm impressed with how deep you dove into this information. And we do have one question in the question and answer, but I'm going to ask a quick one first, then I'm going to read the Q&A. Out of curiosity, because you sat through some of the other presentations, it appears that our group centered a lot around Atlantic City.
Yes.
And I would assume the Newark group probably centered around Newark a lot. But did you find the other groups had a central city or area that they really?
Most of them did. I mean, like obviously West, in the beginning, it was always around Camden. Okay. As every section moved outward, but West was Camden. Jersey Shore was around. It was actually Monmouth County. Ocean County didn't come into play until the very end, toward the 50s or so. So you would say like the main shore towns, Point Pleasant, that Red Bank, those kind of areas, kind of just like where everything kind of sits today. Newark, and then they were Newark and they were suburban. They were two separate groups. So then they merged. So suburban kind of was more on the west side of the state. Architects League always obviously was at the very, very top. Mm-hmm. Central was nutty because it was all over the place. I mean, because they were a conglomerate of like 3 or 4 different, we talk about that we changed our name. Central had all like 5 or 6 different names, and they surrounded Trenton, but then they were surrounded from other areas because they were a conglomerate of Union County and a bunch of other things. So Central was kind of like the most hodgepodge of all the sections.
Right. So there's a question for you, Joyce, from Jeff Bryant. Are the early meeting minutes or records of the NJSA and or the Society of Architects of Atlantic City or Atlantic County still existing? So to corroborate or confirm the various newspaper articles in the presentation of, say, 1900 to 1940.
That I wish was the case. Unfortunately not. When I was initiated into this position by Steve Lazarus, AIA New Jersey, NJSA, or any of the sections almost had nothing. Architects Lead had a really good archives that went back as far as the 30s and the 20s, but none of the other sections did. We come across some things like West had some minutes in the beginning, which was great. Um, uh, New York Suburban had a little bit, but we had nothing. And it was rough for us because I was creating anything based on, you're right, because of course articles, even like you can see the names, um, they change or they have the wrong spelling of something or whatever. So I have to just go based on a conglomerate of oral history of what I've learned. I mean, we didn't even have a full list of our presidents. I had to go and research and go through newspaper articles and find out year by year who was the list of presidents to create a comprehensive list. And I still have some years that I don't know who the president was. But
Okay.
if there's anybody out there who's got anything, we're willing to have it scanned in and paid for. So let us know.
Okay. Um, Not seeing any other questions. I had a kind of a general question, and just I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you comment on how? Okay, you're doing all this research and history of the organization, but how does it give meaning or agency to younger members that include more women, is more ethnically diverse, with a different set of values and/or interests? So
Well,
this whole process of like codifying this history of not just AIA South Jersey, but AIA New Jersey. To what end? And I'm just
like we always say in our motto is the Maya Angelou, you can't really know where you're going until where you know you've been. And like we also did, not just we did the sections, but we also did a women in architecture presentation. And we did the whole research of all the women within AIA New Jersey through the beginning of AIA in 1900. And we kind of showed how that progression, it didn't, started and how it ramped up. And we talked about statistics and, from the 50s to the 60s, because there was a few, women nationally who were architects in the early 1900s, but nothing in New Jersey until the 50s, until Eleanor Pedersen was the main person, and it slowly ramped up. So it shows that yes, it was the organization in the beginning was predominantly male Caucasian, but that shows of the importance of why now we need to have people of different genders and different ethnicities. I myself as multiple different ethnicities to get involved and to show, because the other thing is these articles and stuff only tell us about the people who were in executive committee positions. So when we're learning about the history, a lot of times you don't see the person who might just be a member, right? You only learn about the people who have been involved within and running the organization. So it's important to get involved so that the history knows who you are. That makes sense.
yes. Well, I'm being conscious of the time. It is exactly 1:30.
Well,
Joyce
that's
Rose,
good.
very organized. If there's any other questions, if you can pop it into the Q&A right now. If not, again, I want to thank you, Joyce, for all your hard work, your efforts on behalf of establish this. It's just not AI South Jersey; it's all of AI New Jersey. Because I guess if you didn't bring this up 6 years ago, I think
Oh
you were
yeah,
the impetus for getting this moving. And
yeah, it would never have happened. And we've collected a lot. In fact, we just Kim Bunn from West Jersey and the state had just found the 1990s to early 2000s newsletter. which was the AIA New Jersey newsletter, in her attic, and we are trying to get it scanned because the last section of the history is from 1990s to present of AIA New Jersey, the last webinar that we'll be doing for at least for the history portion. And and what we found was that the electronic stuff, when it went digital, we can't get access, or got degraded, or they condensed it. So then we can't use those photos. They're not usable in a presentation like this. So actually the printed material ended up being better to use because it was scanned in and then we could clip it. So it's a big question of how we are going from 2005 onward. How are we properly going to archive our history now? It's all digital because it goes by by that. And we don't have magazines, and we don't have newspapers, physical newspapers anymore. So what do we do? How does that get archived properly? So that's a good question for the future.
It's a good question. Well, again, Joyce, thank you so much. I want to thank everyone that's on this meeting. I've been watching. We have 31 people still on, and we had 32, and I think that was a great turnout. Thank you, everyone, for signing up for this fascinating presentation. Again, Joyce, thank you, and I wish everyone. I don't know if it's raining where you are, but we were having
Yes,
some
it is.
rain here.
All
Okay,
right. Thank you, everybody.
well, I'll say
Have a good
goodbye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.